Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. This is L24 Midnight News coming to you live from the capital Algiers, and to the headlines. After bloody clashes that left 55 people dead and more than 100 injured, cautious calm returns to the Libyan capital Tripoli following the handover of the 441st Brigade commander to neutral parties. The Military Council in Niger affirms its openness to all parties, and ECOWAS praises the support of Economic Community of Central Africa in confronting the coup. The Zionist occupation forces intensify their violations and arrest 19 Palestinians in the West Bank, and presidency warns that Zionist actions will lead to an explosion in the region. Ukrainian officials claim that they have made another milestone in Kiev's grinding counteroffensive, with Ukrainian Deputy Defense Minister saying that troops have retaken a village from the Russians in the eastern Donetsk region. Hello again and welcome. First, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, received on Wednesday Nabil Ammar, the Tunisian Minister of Foreign Affairs and Immigration, as a special envoy carrying a message from President of the Republic of Tunisia, according to a press release by the Algerian presidency. To a different matter now, the death toll has risen to 55 dead and 146 wounded in the capital Tripoli of Libya after intense clashes between two significant powers in the country. Libyan media outlets reported as both parties agreed on solutions that brought back peace in the country again.
Tripoli's West armed clashes in a year have killed at least 55 people and wounded 146 others in a fighting that rocked the Libyan capital, according to the Tripoli's Emergency Medicine and Support Center. Calm prevailed in the Libyan capital Tripoli after overnight clashes between the Special Deterrence Force and the 444 Brigade, two of the strongest military forces in the country. The clashes were triggered by the detention of the head of the 444 Brigade, Colonel Mahmoud Abbas, by a Red force on Monday. Late on Tuesday, the Social Council, made up of dignitaries and influential figures from Souk el-Jum'a, an area in southeast Tripoli and stronghold of the Red Force, announced that it had reached an agreement with the head of Tripoli-based government, Abdelhamid Dbeibeh, to transfer Colonel Mahmoud Hamza to an unnamed neutral party, as a truce was declared and peace returned to the city. The Unity Government Interior Ministry put in place a security plan to deploy officers to battleground districts to oversee the truce announced between the two sides.
The majority of the patrols of Tripoli's security services, such as the Central Support Stability Operations, they are all present at the 69 camps. We have visited them all along with the Minister of Interior and Head of Government. The security situation, as you can see at around 30, is stable and good, thank God.
The recent security developments in the capital Tripoli saw fears among people that insecurity and instability they had suffered from for years are back in the country, at a time when significant Libyan efforts are undertaken to find a way to organize elections.
In the same line of thought, the head of the Libyan High Council of State, Mohammed Takala, along with Abdelhamid Dbeibeh, the head of the Libyan National Unity Government, discussed a set of political and security issues in the country, particularly the most recent events in the capital, Tripoli. The two parties also discussed the efforts made leading to elections in order to fulfill the people's objectives as soon as possible, according to a statement released by the High Council of the State. Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf stressed the need to give priority to political solution in the crisis in Niger, pointing out that the military option proposed by West African leaders as a last resort does not guarantee the success of conflict settlement in this neighboring country. In an interview with Washington Post, Minister Attaf said that no one can confirm that military intervention can succeed even at the level of Economic Community of West African States.
Nobody is sure, even at the level of ECOWAS, that military intervention can succeed. You can initiate a military intervention, but you do not realize its results. So the countries of ECOWAS are very cautious and show great reservations regarding this option. While discussing the crisis in Niger with US officials, we agreed on three main principles, namely the respect for the constitutional and democratic system, and the return of President Mohamed Bazoum as the legitimate president of Niger, as well as the need to prioritize a political solution to the conflict.
Also, the Algerian Foreign Minister, Mr. Ahmed Attaf, praised the support of the U.S. administration for the work of the UN Security General's personal envoy for Western Sahara, Stama de Mistura. In a special interview with Al Monitor website, the head of the Algerian diplomacy said that Biden administration's recent statements on Western Sahara indicate a more favorable position than under Trump. The Algerian Ministry of Defense announced arrest of 27 drug traffickers by joint detachments of the army in coordination with the various security services and the thwarting of an attempt to bring in 7 quintals and 80 kilograms of cannabis across the border with Morocco. In a unified stance, Moroccan parties and organizations raise concerns about the dangerous escalation of Makhzen Zionist normalization. More in this report.
It is evident that the Makhzen regime has disregarded popular dissent and Moroccan voices denouncing the intrusion of the Zionist entity within the kingdom's borders. The regime has also overlooked warnings from various organizations and parties about the concerning levels reached by Makhzen Zionist normalization, even as the royal court has seemingly compromised the national sovereignty.
The Makhzen regime has escalated its normalization with the Zionist entity by manipulating certain segments of the press and civil society, deploying fabricated associations and institutions. This is a ploy to complicate the Makhzen's normalization scheme with the aggressive Zionist entity.
The Labour Democratic Approach Party, alongside other political entities and human rights organizations, has initiated a resistance against both internal and external policies of the Makhzen. They express their discontent with a government that predominantly resort to repression, coercion, and manipulation to silence citizens, who refuse to surrender their nation to disruptive forces that collaborate with the Zionist occupying entity.
The National Action Group for Palestine and the Moroccan Observatory Against Normalization, along with their affiliates, condemned the Makhzen authorities' detrimental treatment of national sovereignty. The wide opening for Zionist influence threatens national security and the Moroccan society fabric.
As normalization escalates in Morocco, so does the sphere of popular anger against the Zionist Makhzen agenda. This challenge to the Moroccan people's will is met with growing resistance. They view normalization as compromise of their country's sovereignty, a tacit endorsement of the entity's transgressions, and an acknowledgement of its unlawful occupation of Palestine.
Now back to the Niger file. The Nigerian Army Council has stated that it is ready for dialogue to solve the crisis in the country. Al-Amin Ali Zine, who was appointed Prime Minister by the Army Council last week, said during a meeting with the Chadian Transitional President on Tuesday that Niamey is in a transitional phase. The Council explained all facts and confirmed its desire to remain open with all parties, adding that it highlighted the need for the country to be independent.
We have come here with a message from the head of states of Niger, General Abdurrahman Tiani, who expresses his solidarity and brotherhood, and who asks to renew the goodwill and feeling of brotherhood between Chad and Niger. We have explained during the transition process our reasons for this, and we have reiterated that we will remain open to any exchanges with all involved parties. But at the same time, we insist on the independence of our country and our sovereignty. And we would like to discuss this with all of our partners so that they understand that we are not closed.
President of Nigeria and the current president of the Economic Community of the West African State, Bola Tinubu, said that ECOWAS has the support of the Economic Community of Central African States in efforts to confront the Niger coup and restore constitutional order. Tinubu said in a statement on Tuesday evening that he understands the fears of the African people from the military action, but that his group is working to keep the sanctions in place. It is scheduled that the chiefs of the staff of ECOWAS countries will meet on Thursday and Friday in Ghana to discuss a possible military intervention threatened by the Economic Community of the West African States. Residents of Niger's capital, Niamey, have called for the total mobilization of volunteers in order to help the army confront what they see as a mounting threat from the West African regional organization ECOWAS, which it says will use military forces if the military council fails to reinstate President Mohamed Bazoum to power. More in this report.
The residents of Niger's capital, Niamey, are considering a possible military intervention by the countries of the region a few months after President Mohamed Bazoum was overthrown by the military. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, set up a standby force to restore order in the country. However, residents consider this an interference in their internal affairs. They try to defend their country and confront regional threats, as they describe it, by calling for a total mobilization of volunteers to support the army.
We don't pay attention to ECOWAS. ECOWAS was designed specifically for the presidents in power. We don't need it. Whether ECOWAS intervenes or not, Niger is ready for all options. We are ready. Whatever ECOWAS decides, we are ready for it.
The voluntary mobilization within the ranks of the army aims to include tens of thousands of people from all over the country who will be fighting, helping with medical care, and providing logistical services if the military council needs them.
My children and I love these soldiers, and I invite young people to join the army and develop our country and villages. I offer my blessings to these soldiers.
Niger insists on rejecting any military intervention amid the exacerbation of tension between Niger and ECOWAS group, which doesn't seem to ease despite both sides showing willingness to resolve the crisis peacefully.
The Nigerian Defense Ministry has announced that at least 17 soldiers were killed and 20 others were wounded on Tuesday in an attack carried out by gunmen believed to be terrorists near the border of Mali. The ministry said in a statement that a detachment of Nigerian armed forces moving between Boni and Chorodi was the victim of a terrorist ambush near the town of Kotogo, pointing out that the outcome is the final and all the injured soldiers were evacuated to the capital, Niamey. Now in Sudan, Sudanese civil forces assembling in Addis Ababa have announced that the accord on a comprehensive strategy to establish a united civilian front and a political roadmap to conclude the ongoing conflict, restore peace, and reconstruct the nation. The final statement of the meeting outlined the creation of a unified, diverse national army under civilian authority, along with the establishment of democratic governance structure at all levels. South African ambassador to China highlighted that the upcoming BRICS summit places emphasis on collaboration and inclusivity in contrast to exclusive blocs that hinder cooperation with other entities. He also stressed that these principles in an interview with the China International Television Network ahead of the impending BRICS summit in Johannesburg. He reiterated that the core of BRICS ideology revolves around partnership for mutual development.
As you see, the theme we've chosen is an appealing theme. Let's look at key things which we can do as developing countries. When you say partnership, I like to stress BRICS is a partnership. It's not a bloc. We're not competing with any other blocs. We're a partnership for development. We're a partnership for inclusive multilateralism. The first thing that we agreed with our BRICS partners for this year's theme, that let's prioritize what you call just energy transition. We're developing countries, we're still using quite a lot of fossil fuels, but we're quickly transforming this by adding renewable energies. But how do we do that in a manner that doesn't compromise your own people and transform their skills so they can adapt to new technologies? We're sharing those skills. We're saying we must help the world to recover from the pandemic.
Out of the continent now to the Middle East, particularly Palestine, the Zionist occupation forces has detained 17 Palestinians on Wednesday across the West Bank and Gaza Strip. The arrest includes freed prisoners and children in Jenin, Ramallah, Tel Karim, Beit Lahem and Al-Quds, the Shafat refugee camp and Gaza. Additionally, a number of Palestinians were injured by live bullets and suffocations during the Zionist occupation forces' raid on the Balata camp in Nablus, where they fired tear gas canisters and blew up the house of Palestinian citizens and headquarters of the Fatah movement. Hans Gradenberg, the UN envoy for Yemen, announced his efforts to arrange a meeting between warring parties to address urgent priorities and pursue a lasting resolution to Yemen's conflict. Speaking at UN Security Council briefing, Gradenberg noted the parties' inclination toward finding solutions, pointing to a significant reduction in hostilities despite the truce not being extended after it ended in October of the previous year.
Despite the expiration of the truce last October, hostilities on the front lines have not returned to the pre-truce levels, and civilian casualty numbers have significantly declined. However, intermittent fighting and exchanges of fire have continued on some front lines, particularly in Taiz, Marib, Dale, Hodeida, Shabwa, and Sada. Against this backdrop, there have been public threats to return to war. This rhetoric is not conducive to maintaining a fruitful mediation environment. I call on the parties to refrain from escalatory rhetoric and to continue to use and build on dialogue channels established under the truce through the Military Coordination Committee to de-escalate incidents.
The Lebanese Minister of Public Works and Transport said that an oil and gas exploration vessel arrived in concession number 9 to start exploration activities. This comes in the wake of conclusion of an important US brokered agreement last year to delineate the maritime borders between Lebanon and the Zionist entity. For his part, Lebanese Energy Minister Walid Fayed said that the 2- and 3-dimensional environmental scanning showed the presence of potential fills of 4 trillion cubic feet of gas and oil at 3 points.
Today, a new page is beginning. After a few days, when the logistical matters will be settled, the drilling will start. We'll see after 2 or 3 months, based on the drilling period, the results of the drilling operation.
This issue for the Lebanese government and the Lebanese people is a matter of fate, and hopefully before the end of 2023, results will be positive and Lebanon will become an oil-producing country, and it will be a glimpse of hope for the Lebanese people.
To Russia-Ukraine conflict now, Ukraine, or rather Kiev, claimed that it has retaken control of the village of Ordosain in the Donetsk region. Spokesperson of the Ukrainian military said defense forces took control of this region and were consolidating their position. Footage released by Ukraine's military showed soldiers claimed to have retaken the village, and Russian authorities have not yet commented on the claims. The same line of thought, the Russian Defense Ministry spokesperson Igor Konashenkov has announced on Tuesday that the Russian forces conducted a massive strike with high-precision weapons against key Ukrainian military-industrial sites over the past day, which resulted in destroying a Ukrainian electronic warfare and air defense command post in Donetsk. The Russian Defense Ministry also said on Tuesday that it destroyed a Ukraine drone over the territory of the Belgorod region with no casualty or property loss. Still with the conflict in Ukraine, the Ukrainian Red Cross has transported civilians from several frontline towns in Kupiansk district to safety on Tuesday. This comes as Kharkiv regional authorities earlier this month ordered a mandatory evacuation of nearly 12,000 civilians from 37 towns and villages in the eastern Ukraine region. The east of Ukraine sees Russian forces reportedly are making concerted efforts to punch through the front line. Now, China has refuted on Wednesday the Western allegations and said it will for sure be proven wrong. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin said in a press statement that the Chinese economy is recovering after the COVID-19 pandemic, pointing that it remains an important engine for global economic growth. The Chinese official also confirmed that Beijing had taken proactive measures which enable the achievement of tangible results.
We will prove to the West, which believes that the Asian giant is incapable of being an engine for global growth. The Chinese economy continues to recover and it's generally improving, and remains an important engine for global economic growth. After a smooth transition from COVID-19 pandemic, the Chinese economy is recovering within waves of painstaking operations, which will inevitably face difficulties and problems. But we never back down from solving problems, and we have taken proactive measures and we have noticed tangible results.
Moving on now to United States, where the White House had approved a request from Hawaii Governor Josh Green for a full reimbursement, or rather recruitment for 30 days of wildfires related to emergency work. This comes as the U.S. President Biden said Tuesday that he would visit Hawaii as soon as he can. However, he doesn't want his presence to interrupt recovery and cleanup efforts. Hawaii Governor Josh said that the fires were the largest natural disaster in Hawaii state history, and that 80% of the beachfront town had gone.
While I was in there, he had an opportunity to call Governor Green and let him know that he has approved the governor's request for 100% reimbursement for the emergency work that's being done for a period of 30 days within the first 120 days at the governor's choosing.
And now for more international news all around the world, let's follow this report.
Lithuania said on Wednesday it will close two of the country's 6 border crossing points with Belarus. Vilnius justified the move by saying that the geopolitical environment has become more threatening. The decision comes just weeks after the Russian Wagner Group took refuge in the neighboring country. The death toll over the past 3 days from rain-related incidents in India's southern state of Himachal Pradesh has risen to 71. The search for bodies is ongoing as only a dozen has been recovered so far. Heavy rains have battered the hill state since Sunday, triggering landslides in several districts. Some of them were badly hit by landslips. The British Museum has said that it has dismissed a member of staff after items from its collection were found to be missing, stolen or damaged. The museum, one of the most visited in the world, said the items included gold jewelry and gems of semi-precious stones and glass dating from the 15th century BC to the 19th century. Two little Sumatran tiger cubs make their first public outing at the Frankfurt Zoo on Wednesday. The two male tiger cubs, called Roger and Rimbo, were born on June. They are the first offspring of their kind for 10 years. Visitors had to wait to catch a glance at them, as their enclosure was temporarily closed to the public to allow mother and cub some time to bond.
What a beautiful tigers still having place in this world. To this end, ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for taking part with us in this late hour. For more updates, you can follow our social media platform. And all I can say at the end, take care of yourself. Good night.